You look at the Washington Redskins 2018 season and you see where they ended up, and you're like, that sounds about right. Gruden's not that great of a coach. They don't have that great of a roster, but that doesn't exactly tell the entire story. Because when they had Alex Smith in the lineup, I think weren't they like 5-2 before he went down with the injury. Like there was a Redskins team that you could have made an argument could have been a 10-win team last year. It wouldn't have been pretty. They wouldn't have won anywhere in the playoffs as they got there. But they were a team that could run the ball with Adrian Peterson. They could play pretty good defense, especially with the front seven. And if you had Alex Smith managing the game, controlling the clock, and making good decisions, not turning the ball over a ton, this is a team that could grind out 9 or 10 wins, make the playoffs. So while it's just easy to assume that the Redskins are not a very good team, and you're looking at Jay Gruden potentially being on the hot seat, the reality is last year wasn't a total loss, and it wasn't until Alex Smith went down and some of the other injuries that it started to become a loss. So this Redskins team could surprise a couple of people this year, potentially. The big signing in the offseason was the massive contract they gave to Landon Collins, which was a bit of a surprise. But hey, ultimately, you can make your divisional opponent in the Giants weaker and make yourself a little bit stronger. I guess you've got to do it. But it was a surprising move nonetheless. You look at the draft, the big news was heading into the draft, Daniel Snyder and Bruce Allen had taken control of the war room for the Redskins. They're going to trade up into the top 10. They're going to trade up into the top 5. And they're going to go get Dwayne Haskins, by God. And then they stayed put at 15, and they got him any damn ways. And then traded back up into pick 26 in round 1, I believe it was, to get Montez Sweat, the edge rusher from Mississippi State. Then you had other picks in that class, such as Terry McLaurin, the wide receiver from Ohio State, Bryce Love, the running back from Stanford. It was actually really nice work for the Redskins in the draft. I liked Dwayne Haskins. He was my number 1 quarterback in the 2019 draft class. They got him at 15th overall. They were just able to stay put and get him. And I think long-term Redskins fans should be really happy that they did. But looking at this team, going into this upcoming season, what do you got? The strengths of the team, I think it's the running back unit. Assuming Darius Geis is healthy, you've got Geis, you've got AP, maybe get something out of Bryce Love as well. You still have Chris Thompson, don't you? That's a pretty good running back unit. If you want to play a kind of running style, a kind of physical, control the clock type of style, you have some of the personnel in the backfield to be able to do that. And then I look at their defense, I look at that front seven. That defensive line with Jonathan Allen and Ioannidis is really, really good. Like, really, really good. Then you look at the edge rushers that they do have, and you look at a guy like Ryan Kerrigan, and now you throw Montez Sweat into the mix, and you're saying, man, this is a defense that can be really good. And they flashed it at times last year. And I think if you can take that front seven and be able to play the run well, get some pressure on opposing quarterbacks, then on offense, you can manage the game, which, the big trade that they made to go get Case Keenum this offseason to be their starter, he's a guy that you look at him and you say, what he did in Minnesota in 2017, Minnesota made a playoff run with him. 2018 in Denver, he was their starter. He was He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't great. But he probably doesn't have to be great here for the Redskins to enjoy some success with him as a starter. But that's one of the questions is, you could go with Case Keenum, but how much better is he really than Dwayne Haskins right now? And how much better is it for the organization to play Case Keenum long term in 2019 as compared to trying to throw Dwayne Haskins out there and finding what you have? That's a question. Good thing, I guess, if you're a Redskins fan and you want to win some games this year, is Keenum knows that his job is at stake at all times, and Dwayne Haskins will be nipping at his heels, so he's got to go out there and produce and play well. And if he doesn't, he won't have the job very long. It's not made any easier by the Trent Williams situation. At the time of this recording, nothing's been resolved there. Hopefully, for the sake of the Redskins, they'll be able to get that done soon because Trent Williams has been a valuable piece of this organization for a number of years, even with some of the injury problems he's had the past couple of seasons. Fact of the matter is, he's been arguably your best player for several years now. He plays an important position, left tackle. You're potentially looking at having to protect a rookie in Dwayne Haskins at some point in time. Whatever it takes. Fire your medical staff, hire a new one. Just get Trent Williams back on the team. And then you look offensively at the receiving core. Like, there's not a lot to write home about. Didn't Josh Doxson just get released? Former first round pick. Good Lord. Talk about him, Laquan Treadwell. And some of the 2016 wide receivers did not pan out very well at all. Jordan Reed is not going to play in week 1, I believe, due to concussions. What a fucking surprise. Like, when is he ever freaking healthy? Like, you just look at this Redskins receiving unit and you have questions and concerns all over the damn place. Who's going to step up? Who's going to produce? Who's going to be a reliable target? I don't know if they have one at this point, frankly. Looking at the Redskins' schedule this year, first 3 weeks, they get some good tests. They got to go to Philadelphia week 1, then they host Dallas week 2, they host Chicago on Monday night in week 3. You want to win at least one of those games, or you would certainly like to win 2 of them. I think as you go along a little bit more in the season, like, the Redskins could be in a situation where they could start off a little poorly, but then kind of rattle some stuff off as you get later on in the season. Like, you look at weeks 9 and then 11 and 12. They go to Buffalo, host the Jets, host Detroit. You have a chance potentially to win all 3 of those games. Then you come back the last 3 weeks of the year. 2 of your last 3 games are at home. All 3 of those games are divisional games. So there's a chance to potentially control your destiny when it comes to the division. You control your destiny when it comes to the playoffs. You got host Philadelphia week 15, host the Giants week 16, and then go to Dallas week 17. You look at this Redskins team, and the questions that they have are real, serious, legit questions, especially over the past couple of years. What's killed them is when they started getting injuries on the offensive line. And if that happens again, they're done. But I also tend to think that for a team that has been so kind of snake bitten with injuries over the past couple of years, that at some point in time, this is going to balance out a little bit. And they're going to have a year where they're not as heavily impacted by it. And with some of the talent that they have on the front of that defense, and what I perceive as their ability that they should have to be able to run the ball, if that offensive line is healthy, this Redskins team is not as bad as people think it is. And as a result, that's why I've got them finishing second in the NFC East, going 9-7, and perhaps getting into the playoffs as the last wild card in the NFC.